Chapter 43:14. In one of the halls, more than 10 devil cultivators were in the midst of a discussion. Our subordinates have reported that Fengjiu and the rest seem to have returned. What should we do? Do we need to report this to the devil master? A devil cultivator asked as he looked at the person seated in the main seat. The devil cultivator seated in the main seat had a grave expression on his face as he said, "The devil master ordered us to take over this land, but this place was first taken over by Ghost Dr. Fengjiu's subordinates. Now that we have taken a step back and plan to expand the Devil Master's grand plan from Azure Demon City, we did not expect that Ghost Dr. Fengjiu, who had already left, would return here. With her here, I feel that it will be very difficult for us to accomplish what the Devil Master instructed us to do." Then what should we do? Someone below asked. Should we just retreat? Or should we fight with them? Fight with Ghost Dr. Fengjiu? The devil cultivator seated in the main seat glanced at the devil cultivator who spoke and sneered, "You think too highly of yourself and us. Do you know what kind of person that Fengjiu is? Fight with her? Can you even get close to her? Not only can we not get close to her, we can't even get close to the people around her. This Fengjiu and the people around her are really that powerful? Could it be that not a single one of them is weak?" The devil cultivator did not believe it. The ghost Dr. Fengjiu's name has shaken the world. Even if the Devil Lord were to go against her, he wouldn't have the confidence to defeat her. As the saying goes, there are no weak soldiers under a strong general. As the Ghost Doctor, her alchemy skills are rare in the world. Everyone around her was personally trained by her, supplemented by pills. Do you think those people are weak? The Devil Cultivator seated in the main seat paused for a moment before continuing. Ghost Dr. Fengjiu's 8 great Phoenix Guards are all stronger than us. However, these 8 people did not come out with her. Right now, only Du Fan and Leng Shuang are by her side, and there is also a woman of unknown origin. Not to mention the others, just Du Fan and Leng Shuang, these 2 people are not inferior to the 8 great Phoenix Guards in terms of strength. In fact, their strength is slightly above the 8 great Phoenix Guards. Not to mention Fengjiu, even if we combined our strength, it would be difficult to fight one of them. That powerful? The devil cultivator could not help but be startled, his face full of shock. If that's the case, then let's hurry up and retreat. Go back and report to the Devil Master. After all, didn't the Devil Master instruct us not to fight Fengjiu's group head-on? Another devil cultivator said. The devil cultivator seated in the first seat on the left nodded. Yes, I also agree to retreat. Since there is no chance of victory, why should we throw our lives away? We only need to leave those infected with the virus behind. Even if we don't fight Fengjiu's group and leave those poisonous creatures here, I believe that it won't be long before this place becomes a ghost town. Since we all agree to retreat, then let's arrange everything properly. Also, we have to bring that thing away. Who knows, it might come in handy in the future. Chapter 43:15. On the other side, Leng Shuang came to the courtyard after receiving Du Fan's message. Seeing that the door to her master's room was closed, she walked up and knocked on the door. "Master." Fengjiu was researching the antidote for the virus. When she heard Leng Shuang's voice from outside, she didn't even raise her head and said, "Come in." Knowing that she was researching the antidote, she wouldn't disturb her unless it was something urgent. Since she was here, it must be something urgent. "Master, Du Fan sent a message. Please give me your orders." Leng Shuang walked in and explained the situation to her. After hearing Leng Shuang's words, Fengjiu said, "Let Du Fan do it. Also go and lend him a hand." Then Master's place. Leng Shuang hesitated. If she left, there would be no one to guard Master's place. Fengjiu smiled, "Don't worry about me. This is the Wang residence. Without my orders, they won't come in. Go. Don't miss the opportunity." Yes. Only then did Leng Shuang respond. She turned around and walked out. Her black figure flashed and quickly disappeared into the night. At the same time, Du Fan received Leng Shuang's message and knew that her master had asked her to come over and help. At the same time, she also wanted him to eliminate the demonic cultivators. Thus, she planned to find an opportunity to make her move. When she returned, she saw that the demonic cultivators had formed a group and were heading towards the back. Seeing this, she quietly followed them. Compared to the demonic cultivators outside, these demonic cultivators were the leaders. Even if they wanted to make a move, they should be the ones to make the first move. However, she heard them whispering along the way. Their expressions were serious, as if they were saying something. She immediately focused and listened carefully. When we brought that vicious beast here, the virus that the Devil Lord planted in it wasn't as strong as it is now. Now that the virus is fermenting in its body, I'm worried that we won't be able to get close to it. Don't worry, it's trapped in the black iron cage. It won't be able to escape. We just need to bring it back to the spaceship. After all, it wasn't their contracted beast. If they wanted to carry the poisonous beast away, they could only carry it. It was indeed a little troublesome. Ferocious beast? A ferocious beast with a virus? In the dark, Dufan's eyes flashed. After knowing what it was, he felt that he couldn't let them go to the ferocious beast. He didn't want them to take advantage of the chaos and release the ferocious beast, which would be troublesome. Immediately, he released his aura and opened the fan in his hand with a swish. As he waved the fan in his hand, a cold light as sharp as a blade flew out with a swish and attacked the dozen people. Danger. Some people sensed the killing intent behind them and immediately shouted to dodge. However, there were also some people who couldn't dodge in time and died on the spot. Ah! Screams and cries of alarm rang out. The residence, which was originally considered peaceful, was suddenly thrown into chaos. Especially when the leader saw the person who appeared in the night, his expression changed and he cried out in alarm, "Not good. It's Fungio's powerful subordinate, Dufan. Run." Dufan stood high in the night sky and looked down at them from above. When he heard the leader's words, he laughed coldly. "You didn't take the path to heaven when there was a path to hell, when there was no door to hell when there was one. You want to escape after causing so much chaos in Azure Demon City? Do you think you can escape?" Chapter 43:16. When the Devil Cultivators heard that it was Dufan, one of Fungio's subordinates, their expressions changed. The panic in their hearts caused them to immediately think of escaping. Thus, in the midst of their panic, corpses were struck by the air blades and fell to the ground. Streams of blood spurted out from their bodies and splattered all over the ground. The aura of death spread through the air. The smell of blood and the terrifying killing intent caused everyone to tremble in fear. However, after the leader of the Devil Cultivators calmed down and regained his senses, he saw that Dufan was alone and immediately shouted, "Calm down. Everyone calm down. He's alone. If we join forces to deal with him, we won't have a chance of survival." When they heard the word, survival, the Devil Cultivators who had panicked quickly calmed down and retreated. They surrounded the leader of the Devil Cultivators, but even so, their eyes were still filled with fear. "He's so strong. If we join forces, do we really have a chance of survival?" A Devil Cultivator lowered his voice and asked. His voice was trembling and doubtful. "If we fight, we might have a chance of survival. If we don't, only death awaits us." The leader of the Devil Cultivators shouted sternly. He held a sharp sword in his hand and his eyes flashed. He lowered his voice and said, "Later, one of you will go and release the ferocious beast locked in the black iron cage. We will try our best to delay him. As long as we release the ferocious beast, he will definitely not be able to care about us." When they heard this, everyone's eyes lit up. Why didn't they think of this? That ferocious beast was incomparably ferocious and had astonishing battle prowess. Only their demon lord could subdue it. If it was released, Dufan would not be able to care about them. At that time, they could take the opportunity to quickly escape. "Alright, I'll go release it," a Devil Cultivator replied in a low voice. Dufan naturally heard their conversation. He frowned and was about to step forward, but at this time, the Devil Cultivator in front of him also formed a circle to welcome him. "Hold him back," the Devil Cultivator in the lead shouted, and the attack in his hand also flew towards Dufan. "You overestimate yourself." Dufan snorted coldly. With a wave of his fan, a powerful wind attacked and sent the people in front of him flying. Bang bang bang. One by one, the Devil Cultivators were sent flying and landed heavily on the ground. Some of them crashed into the corner of the wall. The blood in their bodies surged and they spat out a mouthful of blood. Just one direct exchange of blows was enough to let them clearly understand the disparity in strength between the two sides. Against such a strong cultivator, not to mention exchanging blows, even if they used all their strength, they would not be able to block his attack. He's a divine king. A Devil Cultivator widened his eyes in disbelief. He could not believe that Dufan was a God King expert. Is it strange to be a divine king? I've already said that they were personally trained by the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, and with the help of those heaven-defying pills, there's nothing strange about them being so powerful. Du Fan's a demon cultivator. Of the devil cultivators of the devil cultivators of the ferocious beasts of the ferocious beast of the devil cultivators of the devil cultivators of the beasts. However, so what if divine king powerhouses? The ferocious beast captured by the demon lord is extraordinary. Furthermore, it now has a fatal poison in its body. As long as it's released, forget about Du Fan. Even if the ghost Dr. Fengjiu comes personally, he won't be able to do anything. Chapter 43:17. Roar. Du Fan's figure paused. Following that furious roar, he felt an extremely powerful and terrifying aura coming from inside, reverberating in the air. Most of the devil cultivators were startled, their eyes filled with fear. One of them said in a trembling voice, He's dead. The leader of the devil cultivators leaned against the wall and gasped for breath. He tried to use his qi to heal his wounds so that he could stand up. After hearing the devil cultivator's words, he sneered, You don't think that he would have a chance to live after releasing that beast, do you? If there was a chance for him to live, why would he let him go? It must be known that that was an extremely vicious and bloodthirsty beast. Once the black iron door was opened, the barrier set up by the demon lord would be broken, and the seal that sealed the beast would also be released. No matter how fast that person ran, he would definitely not be able to survive under the claws of that beast. Furthermore, he never thought that the beast would pounce on him the moment it came out. Therefore, his death was destined from the moment he opened the black iron cage. What are you still standing there for? Take advantage of this opportunity to escape. The devil cultivator in the lead supported himself against the wall and stood up. At this moment, a cold light shot towards him. He was so shocked that he rolled on the ground, narrowly avoiding the fatal blow. However, a deep gash appeared on his thigh. His skin and flesh split open and fresh blood gushed out. He sucked in a breath of air, one hand pressed against his thigh as he cried out in pain. At the same time, he glared angrily at Du Fan, who had returned to deal with him. I said, none of you will be able to escape. As Du Fan spoke, he glanced at the devil cultivators. Just as he was about to step forward and get rid of them, he heard the roars of ferocious beasts coming from inside, accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps. Du Fan immediately stared vigilantly at the courtyard door. Run. Quick. As if he had thought of something, the leader of the devil cultivators was so shocked that his face turned pale. He ignored his injured leg and wanted to run. Roar. With a furious roar, a huge beast that looked like a lion walked out from inside. Its entire body was filled with a strange black aura, and its ferocious eyes were bloodthirsty. Its mouth was stained with blood, and even the fur around its mouth was stained with the color of blood. It stuck out its purplish-black tongue and licked the blood from the corner of its mouth. It bared its teeth and drooled as it stared at the demonic cultivators and Du Fan in front of it. It took a step forward and opened its sharp claws, which were as sharp and terrifying as the crescent moon. A powerful pressure spread out from its body, accompanied by the black demonic aura, which was very frightening. Du Fan stared at it cautiously. His eyes were stern. This ferocious beast was extraordinary. Even with his strength as a god king, he felt pressured before its sharp claws and presence. His vital energy began to ripple because of the demonic aura from the ferocious beast. This was no ordinary ferocious beast. How strong was its combat prowess? Therefore, he didn't attack immediately. Instead, he observed. Roar. With a furious roar, the figure shot out like a ghost. It was unbelievably fast. The target of the vicious beast was not Du Fan, but a demonic cultivator closest to it. By the time the surrounding people reacted, the huge beast had already pressed its claws against a demonic cultivator's body. Chapter 43:18. Crack. The sound of bones breaking could be heard. The dying demonic cultivator's body twitched, and his head drooped down weakly. That ferocious beast's sharp claws lightly swiped and flipped that person over. Its sharp claws swiped down from his chest to his abdomen. Wherever the claws swiped, his clothes were torn apart and his flesh was torn apart. At the same time, blood gushed out and his internal organs were also exposed. Blurg. A demonic cultivator watched this scene as the ferocious beast dug out the demonic cultivator's internal organs and lowered its head to eat them. Even though his hands were stained with blood, he had never seen such a bloody and disgusting scene. He could not help but vomit. The surrounding demonic cultivators turned pale when they saw this scene. They were so shocked that their bodies trembled. They could not even stand up, let alone escape. Du Fan frowned as he watched. This ferocious beast was so bloodthirsty and cruel. If it was allowed to escape, who knew how many people would die? Thinking of this, the spiritual energy in his body surged. The fan in his hand condensed a blade of air and attacked the ferocious beast. Swoosh! Roar! The ferocious beast, which had lowered its head to eat, roared angrily as if it was dissatisfied with being disturbed. It raised its head and glared at Du Fan. At the same time, it exerted force in its hind legs and quickly pounced forward. Its sharp claws swiped at Du Fan. Foosh swoosh! Bang! Roar! The battle between the man and the beast was fierce and fast. The demonic cultivators who were originally escaping did not have time to escape and died under the pressure of the man and the beast. The corpses were either lying on the ground or leaning against the wall. Their eyes were wide open even in death as they stared at the scene in front of them in horror. As for the other demonic cultivators in the house, they had wanted to escape the moment they realized that the situation had turned for the worse. However, just as they were about to leave the house, they ran into Ling Shuang, who had come to their aid. Trying to escape? Die. Ling Shuang held a long sword in her hand. In the pitch-black night, her tight black clothes made her seem as if she had merged into one with the night. Her appearance was something that the devil cultivators had not expected. Her strength was not something that the devil cultivators could match. In less than half an incense stick's time, Ling Shuang had cleaned them up. Ling Shuang swept a glance at the corpses lying on the ground and the pool of blood on the ground. She lifted her eyes and looked towards the house. Hearing the roars of beasts coming from inside as well as the turbulence of the battle, she was worried that Du Fan might have encountered something troublesome. She immediately gathered her energy and headed inside. When she saw the ferocious beast that Du Fan was fighting, her eyes narrowed. Its gigantic body and the speed at which it leaped was so fast that it was almost impossible to capture its figure. In particular, the black aura on this ferocious beast made people feel uneasy. "I'll help you," Ling Shuang said as he raised his sword and rushed forward. Du Fan looked back at him and shouted, "Be careful. This ferocious beast carries a virus. Its combat power is extraordinary." Hearing Du Fan's words, Ling Shuang responded even more carefully, "I know." The two of them joined forces to deal with the ferocious beast. This ferocious beast had been imprisoned for a long time and was already extremely ferocious. In addition, it had used its body to cultivate poison. Now that it was bloodthirsty and they had to avoid being injured, it was difficult for them to attack. Chapter 43:19. With their strength, even if it was a sacred beast, the two of them would still be able to keep it in check. However, this beast's strength had already reached the level of a sacred beast. Furthermore, it had been fed with poison, causing its strength to increase exponentially. Its strength was many times stronger than normal and it had the virus in its body. As such, even if they were not at a disadvantage, they would not be able to keep it in check and kill it. "We've taken the antidote pill that Master refined before. For 10 years we'll be immune to all poisons. Why don't we try it?" Ling Shuang looked at Du Fan and said. "Even so, it's still a little risky. After all, this virus is different from before." Du Fan frowned and said. Looking at the beast in front of them, he said, "This beast's black demonic aura carries the aura of the ancient Black Lotus. I'm worried that if we can't withstand the virus, not only will we not be able to help Master, we will also be a burden to Master. At that time, if something happens to the two of us due to the virus, the consequences will be unthinkable." Hearing this, Ling Shuang fell silent. Thinking of the situation of the Wang family head, if the two of them were to become like that, then Master would really be too busy to deal with it. "Then what do you have in mind?" she asked. Looking at the beast roaring and gnawing on the corpses of the demonic cultivators, Du Fan's eyes flashed and said, "Since we can't fight in close range, then we'll attack from afar. Let's do this." After listening to his plan, Ling Shuang nodded. "All right." As soon as she finished speaking, she took a deep breath and dashed to the other side before attacking the ferocious beast. The beast that was gnawing on the corpses felt the sharp sword aura coming and jumped to avoid it. With a low roar, it pounced towards Lung Shuang. On the other side, Du Fan tossed the fan in his hand into the air. He gathered qi in his hands and poured it into the fan. The fan instantly grew several times bigger. After spinning in the air, it attacked the ferocious beast. The two of them were engaged in an intense battle with the beast. At the same time, Fengjie was coming over. She had heard the roar of a sacred beast in the Wang family and was worried that something might have happened to Du Fan and Lung Shuang, so she wanted to come over and take a look. Before she could reach them, she could already hear a roar coming from the darkness of the night. Just from the sound alone, she knew that Du Fan and Lung Shuang had not yet taken down the roaring beast. For such a powerful beast to appear in such a place, there was no other explanation other than the help of a demonic cultivator. She raised her qi and sped up. When she got closer, she saw the corpses of the devil cultivators strewn all over the ground, as well as the stench of blood that filled the air. She looked up into the air and saw Du Fan's fan enchanted artifact above the mansion. With a whoosh, it slashed downwards like a sharp blade. The ferocious beast seemed to have dodged it. The air blade surging from the fan slashed downwards, causing the ground to tremble. Although they couldn't see what was inside, they could hear the sound of impact and rumbling coming from inside. The battle was very intense. She gathered her qi and jumped onto the wall. When she saw the scene inside, her eyes narrowed. Chapter 43:20. Bang. Roar. There was a loud crash, followed by a beast's roar. Its sharp claws attacked the nearby Lung Shuang. At this moment, Du Fan's fan slashed across the beast's back. It was as if a sharp knife had sliced through the beast's skin and flesh, causing fresh blood to gush out. After the beast roared, its speed at the Lung Shuang slowed down. Lung Shuang flew up on his sword. The sharp sword in his hand flew out towards the beast's forehead. With a whoosh, it pierced through the beast's body at a speed too fast to be heard. Bang! Roar! The beast's body exploded. Blood and flesh splattered all over the ground. Its shrill cry echoed in the air, lingering for a long time. The moment the beast exploded, Du Fan and Lung Shuang dodged. After all the blood and flesh fell to the ground, they looked at Fengjie, who was standing on the wall. "Master." The two called out. "Are you hurt?" Fengjie asked. Her gaze fell on the two of them. "No." The two of them said as they came to her side. "Master, that ferocious beast was the source of the virus," Du Fan said. Fengjie's gaze turned and fell on the ground. She said thoughtfully, "There's also the aura of the ancient Black Lotus." It seemed that the Devil Lord's strength had increased significantly after obtaining the ancient Black Lotus. Furthermore, he had mixed the ancient Black Lotus with the virus to harm the world. It was obvious that the danger he posed was not to be underestimated. "You two get rid of all the demonic cultivators in the city. Isolate the infected people. I need to go back and research the antidote. If there's anything you can't solve, come back and tell me," Fengjie instructed. After glancing at the two of them, she turned around and left. She was originally worried that they wouldn't be able to handle it, but now that the problem had been solved, she naturally had nothing to worry about. The demonic cultivators had been eliminated, and the source of the virus had been eliminated. The most important thing now was to research the antidote. The two of them complied and watched her leave. Then they set the house on fire and rushed to other places. When Fengjie returned to the Wang family, he saw Wang Yu hurrying in before he went to the yard. "Ghost doctor, my father's entire body is burning up. His eyes are red and veins are popping out all over his body. He's in a lot of pain. Quickly come with me to see him," Wang Yu said anxiously. She stopped Fengjie, who was about to return to the courtyard, and quickly told her about her father's situation. "Go." Fengjie responded and moved to the main courtyard, followed by Wang Yu. When he arrived at the main courtyard, he heard a series of fierce roars coming from inside. Sounded like a beast, yet not a human. Fengjie paused and slowly walked into the room where the voice came from. "I saw that my father's situation was not right, so I tied him up with the bundled immortal rope. But he looks like..." Wang Yu looked worriedly at her father, who was tied up on the bed. Fengjie stepped forward and saw that her father seemed to be a beast. Two long sharp teeth grew in his mouth. The skin on his face changed color slightly. His eyes were blood red. On the back of his hands, veins were popping out and his nails were growing longer. He looked like a beast. He wanted to struggle but could not break free. Chapter 43:21. With the sprinkling of the green light, the Wang family head, who was originally restless, gradually relaxed. His blood-red eyes slowly closed as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. The devil qi on his body gradually dissipated. Fengjiu's forehead exuded a trace of sweat. It seemed that mobilizing the cyan lotus consumed a lot of spiritual power. She withdrew her hand and saw that the evil spirit had weakened a lot. Then she turned to Wang Yu and said, "The evil spirit on his body is not gone. You look after him. I'm going to refine medicine." Wang Yu saw that her father had fallen into a coma, and her ferocious expression eased a lot. She was also relieved. After sending her out, she went back to the room to guard. After returning to the room, Fengjiu set up a bounded domain and entered the space to adjust her breath. When her spiritual power recovered, she tried to refine the antidote. A few days passed. She did not come out of the space and did not know what was going on outside. She was focused on refining the antidote, so she did not know that the situation of those people outside was getting worse because of the outbreak of the virus. Until one day when she came out of the space with the refined antidote, she saw Leng Shuang guarding in the yard. She asked him and learned about the current situation in the city. Du Fan and Fei Fei went to the city to help. In the past 2 days, some cultivators went crazy and could not stop them from hurting people. Some of them were killed. Leng Shuang told her about the situation. Hearing this, Fengjiu said, "I'll refine the antidote. Let's try the effect on family head Wang first and then make plans." Then she stepped out. Leng Shuang followed her to the main courtyard and handed the antidote to Wang Yu. "Try this antidote." "Is this the antidote?" Wang Yu asked. Fengjiu glanced at her and said, "It depends on the effect. It may not be able to cure him. I have to observe the reaction after taking the antidote and then improve it. But you can rest assured that even if it can't cure the virus in your father, it can ease it a little. It won't be harmful. I believe in you," Wang Yu said, taking the antidote and feeding it to her father. Fengjiu watched, observing the reaction after taking the antidote and the effect of the antidote. At this time in the city, 2 people on swords came from the sky. As the 2 people approached, the people in the city saw that they were 2 young men. "Who are you? Why did you come to Azure Demon City?" The middle-aged man who was patrolling in the city asked in a deep voice and raised his hand, signaling the team behind him to be on guard. The people who had come were Qi Kong and Luo Yu. Both of them had heard about the appearance of devil cultivators and had come to take a look. They saw that the entire city was on high alert. Everyone was on high alert. Moreover, the air was filled with devil qi and the aura of death. Seeing this, the 2 of them looked at each other. They did not descend from the flying sword. Instead, they stood on the flying sword with their hands behind their backs as they looked down at the middle-aged man who is. Qi Kong asked in a deep voice. The pressure of an expert spread out from his body and covered the area below. Chapter 43:22. Why are you guys here? Just as the legs of the people below were trembling, Du Fan's surprised voice came from not too far away. When they heard Du Fan's voice, the middle-aged man and the others relaxed. When they felt the pressure on their bodies dissipate, they quickly stabilized their trembling legs and stood up straight. When Qi Kong and Luo Yu heard Du Fan's voice, they were also stunned. When they looked in the direction of the voice, they saw Du Fan holding a fan in his hand and Yi Feifei beside him. The 2 of them were striding towards them. Why are they here? Qi Kong and Luo Yu looked at each other, then descended from the sky and headed towards the ground. When they got closer, Luo Yu couldn't wait to ask, "Why are you 2 here? Where's Master? Is Master here as well?" Du Fan smiled, the fan in his hand gently fanning himself. "Of course. We're here, so Master is naturally here too. But why are you guys here?" "We received news that there were demonic cultivators here, so we came to see what was going on. We didn't expect to meet you guys before we even saw the demonic cultivators." Luo Yu said happily, "You guys have been gone for almost a year. We really missed you guys." As he spoke, his gaze swept over Yi Feifei's body. When he saw that her strength had improved a lot compared to before, he couldn't help but nod his head. He patted her shoulder and said, "Not bad, not bad. It seems that you have also worked hard during this period of time by Master's side. Your strength has increased a lot." Yi Feifei was also very happy to hear this. She bowed towards the 2 of them and called out, "Big brother Qi, big brother Luo, it's great to see you guys. Where's Master?" Qi Kong asked, then glanced around. What's going on here? Master is with the Wang family. Come, I'll take you to see Master and explain to you what's going on. As Du Fan said this, he stepped forward and put his hand on Luo Yu's shoulder, then said to the middle-aged men, "They're our brothers. You guys continue, we'll take these two with us." Hey. The middle-aged man came back to his senses and hurriedly responded. After watching them walk away, he raised his sleeve to wipe the sweat on his forehead. On the way, Du Fan briefly told Qi Kong and Luo Yu about what had happened here. He also asked about his family and the recent situation of his two young masters. They chatted as they walked. When they arrived at the gate of the Wang family, Du Fan stopped and said, "This is the place. Master is concocting the antidote. Logically speaking, he should be done soon." The two of them nodded and followed them into the Wang family, heading straight for their master's courtyard. "Leng Shuang," Luo Yu greeted with a smile. Hearing the familiar voice, Leng Shuang turned around to look at them. When he saw the two of them, he nodded slightly. "Master is refining medicine. If there is nothing urgent, please wait for a moment." No hurry, no hurry. Luo Yu waved his hand and sat down in the courtyard. "Du Fan has already told us. We originally thought that we would have to clean up after arriving here, but we didn't expect you to be one step ahead of us and have already cleaned up most of the place. Is everything all right at home? How are the two young masters?" Leng Shuang asked. Chapter 43-23. Hearing this, Leng Shuang couldn't help but reveal a smile. Children are always naughty. Since their master isn't by their side, it's normal for them to be naughty. Isn't that so? Let me tell you, sneaks out when we're not paying attention. Last time the Yama Lord brought them to the city to play, but she sneaked out. In the end, Qingqing, who was taking care of her, was punished by the Yama Lord for neglecting her duty. Was also grounded. Luo Yu said as he walked to the stone table and sat down. He poured himself a cup of water and said, "Now she's more obedient. It seems she's also learned her lesson." He then asked, "That's right, what about the two ancient mythological beasts that Master caught? Have you tamed them?" "They've been tamed. When Master returns, he can help the two little masters form a contract," Leng Shuang said as he looked at the tightly shut door. Previously, his master had taken the refined medicine to the Wang family head. Not long after, he returned to the room and said that he needed to adjust the medicine. It should be almost done. The few of them chatted in the courtyard, talking about the things that happened in the past few days. They originally thought that their master would come out soon, but they didn't expect that they would wait until the next morning. When Fengjiu opened the door and walked out, he had a relaxed smile on his face. Obviously, the antidote had been refined. "Master." The few of them surrounded him and called out, "Why are you here?" Fengjiu looked at Qi Kong and Luo Yu in surprise. Qi Kong looked at Fengjiu and said, "We've been here since yesterday. We heard that there were demonic cultivators here, so we came to investigate. We didn't expect to find Master here. So that's how it is. Wait a moment. I'll take this medicine to the Wang family head and see how effective it is. Later there's something I need you to do," Fengjiu said, then looked at Du Fan and said, "Come with me and tell me what's the situation in the city." "Yes." Du Fan replied and asked them to sit in the courtyard for a while, then left with Fengjiu. At this time, Wang Yu was in the main courtyard helping her father get out of bed. After taking the medicine brought by Fengjiu yesterday, her father's condition was much better than before. But as she said, it wasn't completely cured. But for them, it was good news that the demonic energy in their bodies were gradually reduced, and their bodies were gradually returning to their original state. They could also keep their minds clear. "How's the situation in the city now? Is your grandfather's injury better? If you keep guarding me like this, will you be able to handle the family matters?" Father Wang asked, a little worried. "Father, don't worry. Grandfather's injury is much better. He can sit up, get out of bed and walk a few steps. Because the ghost doctor is here, they don't dare to act recklessly. I discuss things with the elders of the family every day, so you don't have to worry about the inside and outside. As for the situation in the city, it's not very good. There are many people infected by the virus like you," Wang Yu said, helping him to sit down in the courtyard, and said, "2 days ago, some cultivators in the city lost their minds because of the virus. They killed people everywhere like crazy demons. In the end, they were killed by the 2 family heads who were patrolling the city. Now some people in the city are separated and locked up, waiting for the ghost doctor to develop the antidote. Chapter 43-24. Yes. Thanks to her. Wang Yu also said with emotion. Because of her, the fate of the Wang family had changed. Because of her, he had seen things that he had never dared to imagine before. Also because of her, his vision had become broader. If he hadn't met her, perhaps at this time he would still be the same as before. As he was thinking, he saw a red figure coming in from outside the courtyard. He hurriedly stepped forward and saluted, "Dr. Ghost." "Yes." Fengjiu responded, looked at Patriarch Wang sitting in the courtyard and said with a smile, "It seems that you are in good spirits today." "Thanks to Dr. Ghost, my body is finally better," Patriarch Wang said and stood up with the help of the stone table. Wang Yu hurriedly came to his side to support him. "Sit down. I brought you the antidote." Fengjiu motioned and walked to the stone table to sit down. Hearing this, the father and son of the Wang family were delighted. Wang Yu hurriedly helped her father sit down and looked at Fengjiu. She turned her palm and handed over a bottle of potion. Patriarch Wang hurriedly took it and asked, "Do I drink it like this?" "Yes, take it like this." Fengjiu nodded. Wang Yu responded and handed the potion to her father. Patriarch Wang took it, unscrewed the lid and drank the potion in one gulp. Yesterday when he took the potion his consciousness was not clear. But now when he took the potion he felt a cool feeling go straight down from his throat and spread in his body. He could even feel the cool feeling with a touch of spiritual power flowing through his veins and into his blood. The black demon chi on his body evaporated and left his body bit by bit, disappearing into the air. His complexion gradually returned to normal as the demon chi dissipated. After about half an incense stick's worth of time, the demonic aura on his body had completely disappeared, leaving only his usual spiritual aura. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and reached out to feel his pulse. Then he stood up with a smile and said, "Okay, you will recover in a few days. I have something to do. That's all for now." Then he walked out. That's it?" The Wang family head was dumbfounded. Du Fan smiled and said, "Otherwise, why do you think my master is called the Ghost Doctor?" As he spoke, he opened the fan in his hand with a schwa sound and strode out to catch up with his master. "Father, I'll take you back to rest. You take a good rest for 2 days. I'll go and see if they need any help," Wang Yu said. After helping her father in, she quickly went out. After Fengjiu returned to the courtyard, he said to Qi Kong and the others, "The antidote has been concocted and its effects are not bad. The situation in the city is not good now. Go and arrange for the people to wait at the entrance of the Wang clan." Upon hearing this, Qi Kong and the others smiled. They immediately agreed and worked together. "Ghost Doctor, what can I do to help?" Wang Yu followed in and asked. Seeing him, Fengjiu smiled. "Of course there is. Take me to your storehouse. After I prepare the medicine, I'll brew the antidote and send it to those people outside the Wang clan. The decoction can also detoxify." Wang Yu was slightly stunned because his father had taken a potion. Chapter 43-25. Hearing her words, Wang Yu immediately took her to the medicine warehouse to prepare the medicine and prepared 2 large pots to boil the medicine. Qi Kong and others went out. As soon as the news was released, those who had been desperate were all ecstatic and came to the door of the Wang family to wait. Yi Feifei, who acted separately, flew to another place where the infected cultivators were locked up. However, she was stopped halfway. She looked at the man who was not a stranger to her and the group behind him, forming a circle around her. Her face darkened as she asked, "Patriarch He, what are you trying to do? I heard that your master has developed the antidote. Where do you want to go?" Family head He stared at Yi Feifei as he spoke. This woman disgraced the He family and forced him to kill the instructor of the He family with his own hands. She made the He family a laughingstock in the city. How could he not settle this account with her? "Of course, I'm acting on the order of my master to take the cultivators locked up to drink the antidote," Yi Feifei said, holding the bow and arrow at her waist with one hand. "I see. However, you can save a trip." A dark light flashed in his eyes and he sneered. "What do you mean?" Yi Feifei stared at him with a cold face. "Because I can give you a ride and save you a trip." As he spoke, his figure flashed and attacked Yi Feifei at an extremely fast speed. Yi Feifei's original strength was not strong. After following Fingio, her strength improved little by little. After experiencing a lot of experience in attacks, this kind of improvisation was not a problem for her. She who had been prepared took 2 steps back. At the same time, the hand holding the bow at her waist took the bow and arrow and directly pulled it. The psionic power in her palms surged. Even if she did not put the arrow on the bow, she shot out a fierce airflow. Plang! The arrow that she pulled back released a sharp stream of air. That stream of air was like a crescent moon blade as it attacked Patriarchy in front of her. At the same time, taking advantage of the fact that the other party dodged, she stretched out her hand and a golden arrow appeared in her palm. She quickly knocked the arrow and shot it out. Swish! This arrow wasn't aimed at a fatal spot. Instead, it pierced through his shoulder with lightning speed. With a whoosh, it shot towards another cultivator behind him. Both Patriarch he and the cultivator behind him gasped. Not to mention the cultivator behind Patriarch he. Even Patriarch he himself didn't expect Yi Feifei's speed to be so fast. He also didn't expect the arrow to be so fast that even he couldn't dodge it. With one hand covering the bleeding wound on his shoulder, his expression darkened. Take her down. Yi Feifei was standing 10 meters away from them. When she heard Patriarchy's order, she shouted with a cold face, "Do you know my master's identity? You dare to intercept me halfway? Aren't you afraid that my master will take revenge on you?" Ha 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 ha. Patriarchy raised his head and laughed. Suddenly his laughter stopped. He stared at her coldly and said, "I don't know the identity of your master, but I know that she has a great background and is very strong. But do you know why I brought people here to stop you?" Chapter 43-26. He paused. When he saw that she had pursed her lips and did not speak, he sneered, "I don't need to kill you with my own hands. You'll die a horrible death. Among those infected, some of them are so serious that they can't control themselves. I just need to throw you in and create an accident. Do you think that your master will find out that I was the one who caused your death?" Yi Feifei stared at the malicious master he and fell silent for a moment. She then said, "You want to kill me just because of that instructor? That instructor clearly deserves to die. Why should you sacrifice your entire He family for the sake of a person like that?" "Ah. I won't sacrifice my entire He family. On the contrary, you'll pay with your life because of this. Because you've caused my He family to lose all face. You've caused my He family to be unable to raise our heads in the city. You've turned my He family into the laughingstock of the city." Yi Feifei muttered softly when she heard Master He's bigoted words. Master is right. There are some people who can't be reasoned with. She looked at Master He and said, "You can't kill me because you don't understand my master and you don't understand me either." As she spoke, she called out, "Lightning, come out." Just as her voice fell, the crowd heard a flash of light shoot up into the sky as if a gust of wind was blowing from above. They raised their heads to look and couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock. That's a divine beast? That's an eagle." The lightning eagle flapped its wings and circled in midair. Its sharp eyes stared disdainfully at the people below and asked, "How do you want to die?" Master He widened his eyes in shock and took a step back. He stared at Yi Feifei in disbelief. How could this little girl have a lightning eagle of such a level? His heart couldn't help but sink when he saw the coercion emitted by the lightning eagle. Just who was this little girl's master? How could this little girl, who didn't seem to have much power, have such a contracted beast? What are you still standing there for? Do it. At this moment his heart tightened and his entire being was like a taut string. He knew that if he couldn't get rid of this man and beast, he would really have to pay with his entire He family. Thinking of this, he clenched his teeth. He didn't have time to think about it or care about anything else. With a move of his hand, a long sword appeared in his hand. As the spiritual energy in his body surged, it burst out with a sharp edge. He let out a low shout and charged forward with his sword in hand, attacking Yi Feifei in front of him. Yi Feifei stood there without moving. She looked at Patriarch He, who was charging towards her with a murderous aura. She raised her hand that was holding the bow and arrow, and with her other hand she took out a golden arrow and knocked it on the bowstring. Then she aimed at the front. The surrounding cultivators came to their senses at this moment. They didn't retreat but charged forward with their swords because they knew that this man and beast would definitely die. Otherwise they would be the ones to die. A group of people surrounded them, but they didn't attack the lightning eagle. Instead, they all attacked Yi Feifei because as long as she died, the lightning eagle wouldn't be able to live either. At the same time, on the other side, Du Fan was slightly surprised when he saw the lightning eagle appear in the sky. After giving instructions to Master Lin, who was traveling with him, he gathered his energy and headed towards the lightning eagle. Chapter 43-27. On the other side, when Patriarch he saw that the situation was unfavorable to him, he no longer hid his strength. Instead, he sneered and took out a palm-sized turtle shell from his space and tossed it into the air. With a flash of light, the tortoise shell instantly expanded, trapping Yi Feifei and himself inside at a speed that was too fast to be heard. With a loud bang, dust and smoke filled the air. When the dust and smoke dissipated, the huge tortoise shell was upside down on the ground, and the sound of swords clashing could be heard from inside the tortoise shell. Master! The lightning vulture did not expect that the turtle shell would trap both of them and could not help but cry out in alarm. It flapped its wings and flew down, using its claws to pry open the turtle shell. However, the turtle shell was firmly stuck to the ground. It was worried that Yi Feifei, who was trapped inside, would not be a match for that person, so it tried to cut open the turtle shell. However, the turtle shell was incomparably hard. "Open this thing!" It roared angrily and flapped its wings towards the cultivators on the side. Pooh! Those people were sent flying. Their bodies were thrown more than 10 meters away, but they did not dare to move forward. Instead, they retreated. At the same time, due to the limited space inside the turtle shell, Yi Feifei's arrows were not easy to use. Therefore, she could only use her dagger to fight with the other party. However, this was Patriarchy's treasure. He was like a fish in water in here, but she was trapped at every step and could not use her full strength. Not long after, her body was covered in wounds from the fight between the two. Blood dyed her clothes red and her fighting strength was decreasing. "You're just a little girl. No matter how good your skills are, could it be that you're stronger than me, the patriarch of the clan? Heh. Let's see what other skills you have in here." Patriarchy coldly shouted and attacked again. A sharp sword aura mixed with killing intent flew towards Yi Feifei. Du Fan came over. When he saw that the lightning vulture was stepping on those people, causing them to spit out blood and be on the verge of death, he was slightly surprised and asked, "What's going on? Where's Feifei?" His gaze turned and fell on the strange turtle shell. Upon hearing Du Fan's voice, the lightning vulture could not help but look at him in surprise. "Great, it's great that you're here. Quickly save my master. She's trapped in that tortoise shell and the human inside wants to kill her." Hearing this, Du Fan's expression changed. He quickly descended from above and arrived beside the tortoise shell. As he approached, he could indeed hear the sounds of battle coming from within. He extended his hand to touch the tortoise shell. This was an extremely rare treasure. It was incomparably sturdy, like a defensive barrier. He immediately circled around it and saw that one end of the tortoise shell could be seen inside. However, there seemed to be a barrier protecting the inside, completely separating the inside from the outside. Feifei. Seeing Yi Feifei's bruised appearance and the murderous intent coming from the He family head, Du Fan's heart tightened. He immediately condensed his spirit power in his palm and hit Bu Fang's turtle shell. Bang! There was a loud sound, but the tortoise shell didn't show any signs of cracking. Instead, his palm was rebounded by his own strength and he was forced to take a few steps back. Seeing this, Du Fan's eyes narrowed. He gathered spiritual power in his palm again. This time he knew that the tortoise shell would form a protective layer and bounce back the force of his attack. Thus, he directed his spiritual power toward the small opening in front of him. Bang! Chapter 43-28. The heavily injured Yi Feifei fell into the tortoise shell and gasped for breath. When Patriarch he saw that Du Fan was trying to break through the tortoise shell's defense, he clenched his teeth and stabilized his body before stabbing his sword towards Yi Feifei. Seeing this scene, Du Fan's heart tightened and he cried out in alarm, "No!" Yi Feifei leaned back and gasped for breath. She watched as he stabbed her with his sword. The wounds on her body were bleeding and her stamina was getting weaker and weaker. However, at this moment she let go of the dagger in her hand. Instead, she grabbed the bow at her waist and quickly knocked a golden arrow. Shoo! The arrow shot out like lightning towards the center of Patriarchy's eyebrows. That sword strike seemed to have exhausted all of her strength. After she shot out that sword strike, her hand weakly drooped down. As for Patriarch, his entire body was frozen in place. His eyes were wide open as he fell straight to the ground. Du Fan, who was outside, saw the scene inside. Only at this moment did he feel relieved. He let out a sigh of relief. Only at this moment did he realize that his back was drenched in cold sweat. Following Patriarchy's death, the mark on the tortoise shell also disappeared. With a flash of light, the tortoise shell flew up and landed on the ground. It spun a few times before it stopped moving. Fei Fei. Du Fan quickly stepped forward to support her. How are you? Are you all right? As he spoke, he took out medicine to stop the bleeding and bandaged her wounds. I'm fine. Fei Fei gasped for breath as she spoke. However, as soon as she finished speaking, she fainted. Seeing this, Du Fan ordered the lightning vulture to return to her space and put away her arrow and dagger. He picked up Fei Fei and coldly swept his gaze over those people. He didn't say anything and left. What the hell was going on? When he returned, he would carefully settle the score with them. When the cultivators who had been trampled to the brink of death by the lightning condor saw the look in Du Fan's eyes as he left, as well as the death of their patriarch, all of their faces turned pale, and they were unable to regain their senses for a long time. Qi Kong and Luo Yu brought everyone to the Wong clan with the help of the patrolling troops. Just as they were about to check on those who hadn't arrived yet, they saw Du Fan carrying the unconscious Fei Fei over with a cold expression. What's going on? Qi Kong and Luo Yu were slightly surprised. They looked at each other and walked forward. I'll tell you the details later. I'll take her to treat her injuries first. Du Fan said as he carried Fei Fei past them and quickly entered the palace. Seeing his nervous look, the two of them raised their eyebrows. Luo Yu joked, these two seem to have developed feelings for each other. They used to hate each other when they met. Qi Kong smiled and said, feelings develop over time. It's not like it hasn't happened before. As he said this, he patted Luo Yu's shoulder and walked towards the other city lords. Luo Yu stayed behind to keep an eye on the people outside, while Qi Kong brought his people to walk around the city. In the palace, after Du Fan sent Fei Fei back to her room, he went to find Leng Shuang. I'll have to trouble you to treat her injuries, Du Fan said to Leng Shuang. Leng Shuang looked at Fei Fei, who was lying on the bed with a pale face and many wounds on her body. He asked in surprise, who hurt her? Who would dare to attack them in this city? The patriarch of the He clan. Du Fan looked at Fei Fei on the bed and said slowly, take care of her here. I'll have to deal with the He clan. Chapter 43-29. Hearing this, Du Fan turned and left. He ordered the servant to bring in some water before leaving. Leng Shuang helped Fei Fei change her clothes and apply medicine. After rebandaging her wound, she covered her with a quilt and got up to leave. As soon as she left the room, she saw her master coming in, so she went to greet her. Master. How is Fei Fei? I heard that she fainted and came back injured? Fengjiu asked as he walked forward. She should have been hit by a palm. It's considered quite heavy. The rest are all superficial wounds, but there are 2 deep wounds. She lost a lot of blood and fainted. I helped her change her clothes and applied medicine, but she hasn't woken up yet. Leng Shuang paused, then continued, Du Fan went out to deal with it. He said it was done by the He family. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. Since that's the case, you stay and take care of her. They'll take care of everything else, so there's nothing to be busy with. Yes. Leng Shuang replied. Thus Fengjiu went in to check on Fei Fei. Seeing that she was fine, he turned and left, heading towards the Wang family's elders' courtyard. In the Wang family's elders' courtyard, Lin Jilin, who was taking care of him, saw Fengjiu enter and bowed, calling out, Miss Feng. Miss Lin, how is the old man today? Fengjiu asked with a smile as he walked in. Grandfather Wang is in good spirits. He's in his room. If Miss Feng needs him, please come in. I was just about to go home, she said gently, revealing a smile as she turned slightly to invite Fengjiu in. All right, I'll go in myself. You can go about your business, Fengjiu said with a smile. Seeing this, Lin Jilin responded and left first. The ghost doctor is here? Old Master Lin walked out and smiled when he saw Fengjiu. Ghost doctor, how come you have time to come to my place? I heard that now that the antidote has been developed, those infected people in the city are lining up outside the residence. Fengjiu walked in and sat down at the table with him. Then he smiled and said, "Some of the medicine has been boiled and some are still boiling. Wang Yu is keeping an eye on it. Nothing will happen. That's why I took the time to come and have a chat with you. If the ghost doctor could come here often, I would be extremely happy." He smiled as he poured her a cup of tea. "We are indebted to you for taking care of us during our stay in the prince's mansion. Everything was prepared without a word. Speaking of which, we still have to thank the old master," Fengjiu said with a smile. "Haha, the ghost doctor's thanks is something that we cannot accept. Furthermore, you are my palace's guests. Naturally, we cannot neglect you. If you can stay here for a long time, it would be our palace's honor." The old ancestor of the Wang family stroked his beard and said with a smile. Now that his body had recovered, his face was rosy and he was full of energy. "The matters in the city are more or less settled. So, I'm here to talk to the old master about what to do next." Fengjiu smiled and looked at him saying, "I still have matters to attend to at home. I've already stayed outside for a long time and it's time to go back. However, the city is in a mess now. If there is no powerful family to control it, there will be trouble soon." Chapter 43:30. Therefore Fengjiu told him her plan. Although Azure Demon City was large and there were many aristocratic families after this incident, it would be in chaos. Maybe some practitioners would take the opportunity to do something. Therefore she needed the Wang family to become the first aristocratic family in Azure Demon City. In this way, Azure Demon City would be under their jurisdiction, and she would not have to worry about any trouble in the future. The two of them chatted in the room. Outside the mansion, after drinking the medicine, the practitioners in a long line found a place to sit down cross-legged. When they felt the devil chi in their bodies gradually dissipating and their spiritual power gradually recovering, they cheered in surprise. They walked to the gate of the Wang family, bowed respectfully and left together. They knew that there was a very powerful guest in the Wang family. Moreover, this guest had excellent medical skills. The medicine they drank was the antidote refined by this guest. This time, if it wasn't for this person, they probably wouldn't have survived. However, they did not know who that person was. Some people said that it was a woman in red with a peerless beauty. Some people said that it was an old man with white hair and a beard hanging down to his chest, with an air of immortality. Maybe some of them knew what kind of person that person was, but it was not very important to them. What was important was that their virus was cured and they had a chance to live. Moreover, they also knew that this chance to live came from that mysterious person. A few days later, Yi Feifei's injury was almost healed, and everything in the city gradually returned to normal. Fengjiu, who was in the Wang mansion, also found a chance to say goodbye to the Wang family. Her husband and children were waiting for her at home. Now that the matter was solved, she just wanted to go home and reunite with her family. She just wanted to hug her son and daughter, whom she had not seen for nearly a year. "Ghost doctor is leaving so soon?" The Wang family head looked at Fengjiu and said, "My son has chosen a day to get married. I wanted to invite you to stay for a drink, but I didn't expect you to leave so soon." "Yes. If there is nothing urgent, why don't you stay for a drink?" Wang Yu also looked at them and said, her heart full of reluctance. In any case, they had been together for nearly a year, but now they were finally going to part ways. Fengjiu smiled and said, "We won't be attending the wedding banquet. We still have things to do at home, so we can't stay out for too long. However, we have prepared a congratulatory gift." She smiled and gestured to Leng Shuang. Leng Shuang stepped forward and took out a box from his space. "This is our wedding gift for you." Wang Yi did not open it. She just took the box and said, "Thank you. If you have a chance in the future, you must come again." "Well, if there's a chance, we'll come again." Fengjiu smiled and walked out. When he arrived at the front yard of the hall, he stepped on the rainbow glaze feather and soared into the air. His red robe fluttered in the wind, looking unrestrained and dazzling. Du Fan and Yi Feifei looked at each other, then flew up on their swords and followed beside their master. Now the matter had been dealt with. The patriarch of the He clan had died in battle, and the members of the He clan had moved out of Azure Demon City. The matter had come to an end. Chapter 43:31. Daddy. The two little fellows called out in a crisp voice. Xianyuan Mose walked over and sat down at the table. He glanced at the items in their hands and said, "Put away your toys and take out your books. I will check your homework from yesterday. Thus, the two little guys hurriedly put away their toys and took out their homework from their respective spaces. They placed the homework in front of their daddy and sat down obediently. Xianyuan Mose looked at the two sets of homework placed in front of him and glanced at them. He then flipped through them unhurriedly. The two little guys were still young. If they were in an ordinary family, they would probably only know how to play all day long and would not be exposed to such things at such an early age. However, as their children, they naturally started earlier than others because of their different background. Both sets of homework were written with a brush. Every stroke was regular and it could be seen that they were written with heart. Mu Chen's handwriting was neat and tidy and the strokes were heavy. But Yu Er's handwriting was smaller, and some of the strokes were a little crooked. There was a lot of space between the words. Thus, after looking through the two sets of homework, he said, Chin Er wrote very well. However, you don't have to use too much strength when holding the brush. When you write, Daddy will teach you more carefully. Yes. Hearing his father's praise, the little guy looked at him with bright eyes. He was very happy. When Yu Er saw that her brother was praised, she could not sit still anymore. She quickly slid down from the stool and threw herself into her daddy's arms. She asked softly, Daddy, Daddy, what about me? What about me? Xianyuan Mose only felt his arms soften. He looked down and saw the little girl looking up at him with a pair of expectant eyes. His heart softened and his eyes naturally overflowed with love. He reached out and stroked his daughter's head. He said gently, Yu Er's handwriting is also very good. I can see that you put in a lot of effort. However, you still need to continue to work hard and cannot slack off. Yu Er will remember Daddy's teachings. I will not be lazy. She was so happy that her eyes curved into crescents. She hugged her father with her chubby little arms and rubbed her little face against his chest. A trace of envy flashed across Mu Chen's eyes when he saw this scene. He was the elder brother and a young man. Most of the time he couldn't throw himself into his father's arms and act coquettishly like his sister. So every time he saw his sister acting coquettishly towards his father, he really wished that he was a girl like her. I won't give you any homework today. Just have fun. If there's anything you want to eat, just tell Leng Hua and the others and let the kitchen prepare it. Hearing her father's words, Yu's eyes lit up. And Yu wants to eat lotus cake, or will go and tell Uncle Hua. While speaking, she left the bosom of Xianyuan Mose and bouncing her little legs, she ran outside. Hui Lang, who was standing guard outside the courtyard, saw her come out. He smiled and said, run a bit slower. Uncle Hui Lang, Daddy said that I don't need to do homework today. I can play today and let the kitchen prepare what I want to eat. She said with a smile and turned back to look at Hui Lang. Then, like a wisp of smoke, she ran toward the kitchen. Do you want to play? In the courtyard, Xianyuan Mose looked at his son and asked. Mu Chen thought about it and shook his head. Oh. Chapter 43-32. Chin Er wants Daddy to teach me how to hold a brush and practice writing. The little fellow looked at him and said. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose slightly raised the corners of his mouth, revealing a smile. Well, go to the study with Daddy. With that, he stood up and watched his son get down from the stool and walk to his side. Then he bent down and picked him up and strode out. The little fellow didn't expect that his daddy would pick him up. For a moment he was slightly stunned, and then hurriedly stretched out his small hands and hugged his daddy's neck. His eyes were shining and he smiled contentedly. On the other side, was full of joy and skipped all the way. Because she didn't find the Leng Hua, she went to the kitchen by herself. However, when she passed by the rockery, she tripped over a stone on the ground and lost her balance and fell forward. Ah! She exclaimed. Before she could react, her body had already fallen forward. Her hands rubbed against the ground and a little blood oozed out. Hiss! Her little face turned pale. She only felt that her knees and palms were burning. It was very painful. She looked around and saw that there was no one around. Therefore she stood up by herself. Oh, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. She blew at her scratched palm and comforted herself. Because her hand was injured, she couldn't pat off the dust on her body and check on the injury on her knee. So she stood for a while and then limped back to where she came from. Qin Xan and Bai Qingqing heard that Yama Lord exempted Yu from today's homework and said that she could let the kitchen prepare whatever she wanted to eat. Knowing that she was going to the kitchen, they walked and chatted as they walked to the kitchen. But they didn't expect that halfway, they would see you with her palms spread out and limping over. Seeing the blood seeping out from her knees as well as the blood on her palms, the complexion of these two people couldn't help but change, and they immediately stepped forward. What's wrong? Seeing them, stopped her footsteps and with a trace of forbearance she softly said, fell down, my hands and knees are very painful. It's okay. I'll help you apply some medicine. Qin Exin quickly comforted her and carried her back to the courtyard with Bai Qingqing. In the main courtyard, although Xianyuan Mose and Muchen had gone to the study, Hui Lang was still standing guard outside the courtyard. At this time he saw that little Yu, who had been bouncing around a moment ago, had been carried back. Her knees and palms were bleeding and her little face was deathly pale, so he hurriedly stepped forward. What's going on? You were fine just now. How did you get hurt in such a short time? She fell down. First I will help her clean up the wound and apply some medicine, Qin Exin said. Then looking at the hand of Yu which was still bleeding, her heart couldn't help but sink. There was something wrong with this situation. Generally, even if one fell down and scraped the skin and bled, the wound wouldn't be bleeding like now. After all, the scraped wound wasn't deep, but Yu's wound was still oozing blood from the time they discovered it. Go and invite Yama Lord. Qin Exin carried Yu and quickly entered the courtyard, leaving behind a sentence to Hui Lang. Oh, okay. Hui Lang blanked out for a moment, then turned around and walked towards the study. Chapter 43-33. Qin Exin quickly cleaned the wound on her palm and said to Bai Qingqing, cut it open at the knee. Bai Qingqing stepped forward to help and carefully cut open the knee of the trousers. Was originally wearing a pink dress with a pair of white long pants inside. But at this moment, there was a blood stain on the knee of the white pants she was wearing inside the dress. Especially when Bai Qingqing cut that piece of cloth on the knee, it revealed a small wound caused by the abrasion of the sand and stones. It was reasonable to say that this kind of wound would not bleed for a while, but that small wound was still bleeding. Looking at it, one's heart also followed suit. This medicine will hurt a little but it won't bleed for a while. Bear with it for a while, Qin Exin said softly. After seeing her nod, she took out the medicine to stop the bleeding and sprinkled it on her palm. She had used her master's hemostatic powder. Fortunately, once the powder was sprinkled on the wound, the blood stopped oozing out of the palm very quickly. In the study, Xianyuan Mose was teaching his son how to hold a brush and write when he saw Hui Lang rushing in. Master, fell and her hand and knee are bleeding. Hearing this, his son's hand that was holding the brush paused, and the ink dripped onto the white paper and melted. In the next moment he put down the brush and asked in a deep voice, did you fall very badly? As he spoke he had already walked out of the study table. When Mu Chen heard this news he was also stunned for a moment. He quickly got down from the chair and planned to take a look. The trousers at the knee area are stained red with blood. I saw that her little face was a little pale. Qin Exin asked me to come over and invite you, so I came over immediately. Master, quickly go and take a look. As Grey Wolf spoke, he saw his master pick up his son from the side and bring him out. In the blink of an eye, the two people, one big and one small, disappeared from his sight. Hey, wait for me! Hui Lang shouted and quickly chased after them. Leng Hua and the others went outside to deal with some matters. When they returned, they faintly heard Hui Lang's voice and went in the direction of the sound. They did not see the Yama Lord and only stopped Hui Lang. What's wrong? Leng Hua asked, not knowing what happened. Hey, you guys are back. Just in time, let's go to the main courtyard to see little Yu. She fell, but I don't know what happened, but it seems that her injury is not light. I just came to tell Master that he is now taking little Qin to the main courtyard. Before he could finish speaking, he saw that they had already gone to the main courtyard. He immediately chased after them. Why? Even if you don't listen to me, you should at least wait for me. Why should I wait for you? It's not like I don't know the way. Wei Feng turned back and glanced at him. The next moment he also started walking. Hui Lang muttered all the way to the main courtyard, but he saw that the people who arrived first could not enter the room and could only wait in the courtyard. He immediately went forward and looked at Ying Yi, who was guarding outside the room. Why are you all here? Are you not letting us in? Her wound is being treated. Why are you all going in? Ying Yi said and glanced at them. Just wait here. I heard from Qin Xen that the bleeding seems to have stopped. Didn't she fall? Why does it sound so serious? Fan Lin asked in confusion. I don't know. Ying Yi shook his head and said. Chapter 43-34. It doesn't hurt anymore. Little Yu shook her head as she spoke. Seeing that so many people were worried, her little face was full of guilt. It's all Yu's fault. Yu wasn't obedient and didn't walk properly, so I fell. Seeing his youngest daughter's expression, how could Xianyuan Mo's bear to scold her again? He only gently patted her head and said, "It's all right. After applying the medicine you'll be fine very quickly. Next time pay more attention when you walk and don't fall again." Yu responded. She didn't know if it was because she had lost a lot of blood, but her little face was still pale. Moreover, there was a bit of tiredness on her little face. She leaned into her father's embrace and quietly watched them bandage her wound. "Younger sister, if you want to sleep, then sleep. We'll stay here to accompany you," little Mukin said. Because her hand was injured, it wasn't good for him to hold her hand. Therefore he followed his father's example and stood on his tiptoes as he stretched out his little hand and gently patted her head. "Be good, you'll be fine after sleeping." Hearing their voices, the little one slowly closed her eyes and fell asleep in her father's embrace. When the people in the room saw that she had fallen asleep, they also softened their voices. After Qin Xen finished bandaging the wound on her knee, she lowered her voice and said, "Yama Lord, let little Yu sleep. Let's go outside, I have some things to say." Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose glanced at his daughter who was sleeping while leaning against him. He saw that she didn't seem to be sleeping very well, as if her wound was hurting. From time to time she would wrinkle her little eyebrows. Therefore he reached out and pressed her sleeping acupoint, wanting her to have a good sleep. He carefully took off her outer clothes and placed her on the bed. After covering her with a quilt, he indicated for them to go outside to talk. When the people waiting in the courtyard saw them come out, they first bowed to Xianyuan Mose. "Yama Lord." Xianyuan Mose responded and walked to the stone table to sit down. He looked at Qin Xen and said, "Speak." "Yes." Qin Xen looked at the others and nodded slightly to Fan Lin. Then she said, "When I was treating the young master's wounds, I felt a little strange. Bruises usually ooze blood and quickly stop bleeding. The young master's palms and knees were not seriously scratched by the gravel and sand, but the small wounds kept oozing blood. It was very strange." "Has the bleeding stopped?" Fan Lin asked. "I used the hemostatic medicine refined by master and the bleeding stopped," Qin Xen said. Hearing this, everyone exchanged glances. Guillemot asked, "Won't everything be fine if the bleeding stops? Why do you say it's strange?" "It's because the amount of blood flowing out from the wound is much more than the amount of blood flowing out from a small injury from the fall. This in itself isn't right. However, I can't put my finger on it. I just feel that something isn't right. That's why I'm a little worried about little master's body," Qin Xen said with a frown. Before master left, he repeatedly told them to take good care of the two young masters and also told them about the serious situation. They had been very careful. However, she didn't know how to deal with this strange situation. Little Muchen stood at the side and listened. He didn't understand some of the words they said and didn't know what they meant. He only knew that it seemed that his sister's bleeding so much was a very serious matter. Chapter 43-35. Yes. Qin Xen and Bai Qingqing looked at each other and responded. After instructing them, Xianyuan Mose and Mu Chen went into the room to accompany Yu. When the people in the courtyard saw them enter the room, they motioned for Qin Xen and Mu Chen to go outside to talk. "Yu just fell down. Is that all? Weren't you with her at that time?" Fan Lin asked. Qin Xen shook her head. "No, we met her halfway." She stood up and walked back. When she saw us, she didn't cry even though she fell down. Her little face was pale and she was enduring it. Then she paused and said, "What do you think is the reason? That wound doesn't look serious. When she wakes up later, I'll check it for her." Fan Lin said and then said, "Yama Lord asked you to guard you. Take good care of her. Don't let anything happen to her lest master comes back and worries." "I know." Qin Xen nodded and looked back at the closed door. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. We received news from Qi Kong and Luo Yu that they met Master. The matter over there is almost settled and they are already on the way. It won't take long for them to reach home. Leng Hua said from the side. Seeing that there was nothing else to do here, he said to everyone, "Go and rest first. Qin Xin, Qingqing and Huilang are here to guard. We'll come back later to take a look." They looked at each other and nodded. Because they went out to deal with the devil cultivators, they just came back. But they didn't expect to hear the news of Yu Er's injury as soon as they got home. But no matter what, the wound was already bandaged and she was fine. They went back to rest and thought that they would come back later to take a look. Qin Xin, Qingqing and Huilang stayed in the courtyard until night fell. In the room, Yu, who had slept, opened her eyes and saw her father and brother sitting by the bed. She softly called, "Father, brother. Yu, are you hungry? Get up and eat something before you sleep." Xianyuan Mose picked her up and helped her put on her coat. Then he held her in his arms and called out to the outside, "Bring the food in." When Qin Xian and Bai Qingqing heard her voice, they responded. Qin Xin walked inside, while Bai Qingqing went to the kitchen to bring the dinner over. "Yamalord, let me check Yu's pulse again," Qin Xin said and came to their side. Looking at Yu, she asked, "Do your hands and knees still hurt?" Yu thought for a bit, then blinking her pair of beautiful big eyes, she softly said, "Not very painful. I'll change your dressing tomorrow. Come, let me feel your pulse." Qin Xin said softly and asked her to stretch out her hand. The little one obediently stretched out her hand. After watching her take back her hand, she said, "Aunt Qin is not sick." Listening to the little one's soft words, Qin Xian's heart softened. She softly said, "Enr is not in pain. Aunt Qin will check you. You don't need to take medicine." After saying that, she took a step back and bowed to Xianyuan Mose. "Yama Lord, Yur's body is fine, but her hands are injured. It's not good for her to eat. Do you want to feed her? Or should I do it?" "Benjum will do it," Xianyuan Mose said and said to Muchen, "You eat by yourself." Chapter 43-36. "Okay," the little one answered obediently and raised her head to look at her father. Xianyuan Mose scooped up some chicken soup for her to drink and said, "Drink this bowl of chicken soup, then eat some rice. Tonight's dishes are all your favorites. After you're done eating, there will be dessert lotus cakes." Yes, Yu loves lotus cake the most." Smiled and her little face overflowed with joy. Her pair of eyes curved into crescents and she obediently opened her mouth to eat. Because her knee was injured, they did not let her get out of bed to walk. After the meal, Fan Lin also came to check her pulse. Just like Qin Xian, he could not find anything. The next day, when Qin Xian helped her change the dressing, she saw that the wound was almost healed. She was relieved and thought that maybe she was overthinking. Since the wound was healed and there was no abnormality in her pulse, she should be fine. After another 2 days, the injuries on Yu Er's palms and knees were completely healed. After staying in bed for a few days and not walking around, the bandages on her hands and knees were removed. She happily jumped on the ground and walked out. "Little sister, I am going to practice calligraphy. Do you want to come?" Muchen came to her side and asked. "Practice calligraphy? But my hand is just healed." "I don't want to practice calligraphy," said, and her little face wrinkled. Hearing this, Muchen thought for a while and said, "Then I will practice calligraphy and you will memorize?" She then smiled and nodded in response. "I will hold your hand." Muchen took her hand and led her to the study. Qin Xian and Bai Qingqing, who were following behind, saw this and could not help but smile. The two little masters were really very likable. They were so obedient and sensible at such a young age. In the study, Xianyuan Mose was copying some words for the two children to practice their handwriting. When he faintly heard their voices, he put down the brush in his hand, tidied up the things on the table and walked out. "Daddy." As soon as the door opened, the two little fellows called out. "Come in," Xianyuan Mose said as he gestured for the two of them to come in. At the same time he asked, "What does you want to learn today?" "Daddy, is memorizing books," the little one said with a smile. "All right, then memorize the 3-character classic. Memorize it first, then write it down from memory." As Xianyuan Mose said, he bent down and picked her up. He walked to the 2 small desks that were specially made for the 2 little guys and put her down. After giving her the three-character classic, he went to another desk to teach Muchen how to write. One of the children was immersed in writing, while the other was reading the three-character classic with his back to the book. Their eyes fell on the portrait on the wall of the study. At birth, man's nature is good. Their natures are similar, but their habits are different. Yura closed the book and carried it on her back. Her pair of small hands were supporting her cheeks as she looked at the portrait on the wall. It was a portrait of her mother personally drawn by her father. Her mother was very beautiful in the drawing. Their mother had left the house before they were sensible enough to recognize her. Vaguely, they seemed to have a vague impression of her. However, ever since her father drew this portrait for them, their mother's appearance had been imprinted in their minds. Children don't learn not suitable, young don't learn old. Because she was distracted, she forgot what was next. She was about to flip the book when she heard her father's voice. Chapter 43-37. Young don't learn, old don't learn. She hurriedly recited and saw her father standing in front of her. Why aren't you paying attention? What are you thinking about? Xinyuan Mose asked. Blinked and glanced at the portrait on the wall. She whispered, "You are Mrs. Mommy." Hearing this, Xinyuan Mose turned sideways and looked at the portrait of Fengjio in red hanging on the wall. The person in the painting was looking at them with a smile. His eyes softened and he reached out to ruffle his daughter's hair. Your mother will be back soon. It won't be long before you can see her. Hearing this, the two children's eyes lit up. Really? Mommy's coming back? When will she be home? She's already on her way back. As for when she will be home, it will depend on her footsteps. Xinyuan Mose's lips curved slightly and his eyes were smiling. All right, you two stay here and practice your calligraphy. Daddy will go out for a while. Okay. The two little guys nodded. After watching him leave the study, Muchen got down from the desk and trotted to close the door before coming to Yura's side. Brother, Daddy said Mommy is coming back. We will be able to see her. Yura's eyes were shining and her little face was full of excitement. Yes, Mommy is coming back. Muchen's little face also overflowed with excitement. He could only vaguely remember that gentle hug when he was young and the voice that coaxed them to sleep every night to make them feel at ease. That was their mother. Their mother was coming back. Brother, let's ask Aunt Chin and the rest to take us to make new clothes tomorrow. I want to wear a beautiful new dress and wait for Mommy to come back. Hearing this, Muchen looked down at his little robe and said, The clothes we are wearing are very new. He thought for a while and said, But we can make a few more sets. He also wanted to wear the best clothes in front of Mommy. The two little guys discussed in the study. In the afternoon, they played around in the residence. In the evening, Yer returned to the courtyard first, but when she passed by the garden, her footsteps paused and her eyes looked ahead. What's wrong? Qin Xian and Bai Qingqing both asked and looked ahead, but there was no one. Blinked her eyes and looked in front, then looked at Qin Xian and Bai Qingqing. She said, There seems to be someone in front. Someone's there. The two of them were slightly taken aback before they laughed. You must be mistaken. Apart from us, there are only a few servants in the mansion. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. Furthermore, we didn't see anyone in front of us. Blinked and did not say anything. How about this? You bring back to the courtyard first. I'll go to the kitchen and bring the food over. Bai Qingqing said. All right. Qingxin smiled, then holding Yu's hand. Let's go, let's return. Oh. Responded and continued to walk forward while holding her hand. While walking, she looked around. The sky was dark in the evening and a gentle breeze blew, bringing a chill to her body. She could not help but shrink a little. What's wrong? Are you cold? Qin Xian stopped and asked. Yes, there's a breeze. So cold. The little one said and looked up at her. Chapter 43-38. N. Answered, and hugging her neck with both hands, she shrunk her whole body into her bosom, only using the corner of her eyes to look all around. Qin Xian carried Yu back, and when she walked forward, her eyes swept all around, but she indeed didn't see anything. Although she was puzzled in her heart, but she didn't say anything and just carried her back to the courtyard. Arriving at the courtyard, she put on another set of clothes for her and closed the doors and windows, then asked, Are you still cold? Not cold. Shook her head and said with a smile. Hearing this, Chin Exen smiled. Then that's good. And Chin, my mother is coming back. I'm very happy. Pulled her sleeve and looking up at her with a smile, she said. And master is already on the way back. Perhaps it won't be long before she arrives home. At that time, you don't need to look at the portrait in the study room. Chin Exen said with a smile. Mother is coming back. Can I sleep with mother every night? She blinked her eyes and asked. Hearing this, Chin Exen couldn't help but chuckle and said, Then you have to ask your father about this. Your mother has been gone for almost a year, and not only you, your father also misses her. So it's like this. She tilted her head and thought for a bit, then said, Then we will sleep together as a family. I and my brother will sleep in the middle and father and mother will sleep beside us. She excitedly clapped her hands, as if she was endlessly happy for her good idea. Bai Qingqing came in with one hand holding something, and with the other hand she pushed open the door and came in. Seeing you smiling so happily, she asked with a smile, What are you talking about? So happy? I am talking about master coming back. You said that she wants to sleep with master every night. Chin Exen said with a smile, then stepped forward and took the tray from her hand and put down the things. The two maids following behind also put down the things, then withdrew, leaving only Bai Qingqing and Chin Exen in the room. My father is not coming back to eat? What about my brother? Do they want to eat together? Asked while looking at both of them. Yama Lord is still dealing with some matters. He told us not to wait for him. Mu Chen has already sent someone to get him. He should be here soon, Bai Qingqing said as she scooped 2 bowls of soup. Sister. Mu Chen walked in and saw that there were only the 3 of them in the room. He walked to the table and sat down. Big brother, eat. Said while sitting there looking at him. Chin Exen and Bai Qingqing looked at the 2 children who looked exactly the same. They brought the stew to them and asked, Do you need us to feed you? No need, I'll eat it myself, Mu Chen said as he sipped the soup with a spoon. Upon seeing this, also shook her head. Can also eat by herself. She also imitated her brother and ate by herself. Chin Exen and Bai Qingqing smiled and helped them pick up the food. After the meal, the 2 asked the maids to come in and clean up the dishes on the table, then prepared to help them bathe. At night, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly frowned. Her hands tightly grasped the quilt and cold sweat seeped out of her forehead. Xianyuan Mose had not returned, so Bai Qingqing was guarding outside the room. Chin Exen was guarding the table outside the room, and the one sleeping beside on the bed was little Mu Chen. Chapter 43-39. Chin Exen, who was resting her face with one hand, was startled when she heard Mu Chen's voice. Instinctively she stood up and walked into the room. I'm here, what's wrong? When Bai Qingqing, who was standing guard outside, heard the commotion, she quickly pushed the door open and entered the room. Aunt Chin, quickly take a look at little sister, Mu Chen said. Chin Exen came to the bedside and saw Yu's pale face. Her face was scrunched up and she kept mumbling, No, 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 as if she was having a nightmare. She quickly called out softly, Yu, wake up, wake up. At this time Yu's whole body seemed to have fallen into darkness. She did not know where this place was, only that it was dark and gloomy. In the air there were sounds that made her afraid. What a good innate spiritual body, it smells so good. Ah! A ghost approached her and sniffed, revealing an intoxicated and excited expression. She stuck out her tongue and licked the corner of her mouth. Looking at this little meatball-like person, she wanted to get closer, but she seemed to be afraid of something and could not get close to her. Go away. Go away. Shouted loudly and started to run. She kept running forward. Daddy, Daddy, save me, Daddy, Yu is very scared. Daddy. She had been raised by Xianyuan Mose since she was young. In her extreme fear, the only person she could call out was the person she relied on the most. However, no matter how much she called out, her father did not appear. Father, father. Yu is so scared, Yu is so scared. Father, that when Xianyuan Mose heard their report that something had happened to Yu, he immediately rushed to the main courtyard. When he arrived at the room, he saw that the little one's face was deathly pale. She was so frightened that she was drenched in sweat. She was waving her hands wildly and shouting for him. Father is here, wake up. Xianyuan Mose called her name. His big hand held her waving little hand and called her name. However, no matter how he called, the child did not wake up. Bai Qingqing, who was at the side, was also anxiously looking at Yu. She wished she could do something to help. But just at this time she saw blood was flowing out from Yuer's body. She was so startled that her heart jumped. Bleed, bleed. Her voice trembled and she felt dense uneasiness in her heart. Hearing these words, everyone's heart sunk, and they who were surrounding the bed looked towards Yuer's body. Sure enough, they saw traces of blood seeping out from her calf, arm as well as chest, as if she had been cut by wind blade. Seeing this scene, the black pupils of Xianyuan Mo's shrunk, and terrifying monstrous killing intent gushed out from his eyes. Then he immediately condensed pure yang aura in his palm and pressed it against Yuer's chest. Everyone who was standing at the side did not dare to breathe, but each and every one of them held their breath and looked at the little person on the bed. They heard her calling for father, then calling for mother, then calling for pain, and then calling for fear. They felt as if their hearts were being cut by a knife, and they wished they could be in her place. Mu Chen tightly pursed his lips and clenched his little fist as he looked at his sister's appearance. His little face was tense and there was unconcealable worry in his eyes. He did not know what happened to her, but he knew that her situation was not very good. He wanted to help her, but he didn't know how to. Chapter 43-40. PFFF. Boo Daddy. Also woke up at the same time as she vomited a mouthful of blood. She cried and threw herself into her daddy's embrace. Her trembling little body tightly hugged him. Daddy is here. It's okay, it's okay. Xianyuan Mose hugged her and gently patted her back with one hand. Little Mu Chen saw that his sister had woken up and finally relaxed. His originally tense body also relaxed. You all go out first. We will help you to treat her wounds. Qin Xin said to everyone who was surrounding the room. All right. Wei Feng, Grey Wolf and the others replied, and then they glanced at each other before walking out. Mu Chen, let's go out. Leng Hua stepped forward and led Mu Chen, who was sitting at the corner of the bed, out. Xianyuan Mose wiped the blood from the corner of Yuer's mouth. Seeing that her white underwear was stained with blood, he said, Daddy will take a look at your wounds. But he saw that the little girl was tightly hugging him and didn't let go. She buried her head in his bosom and her body was still slightly trembling. Seeing this, he was worried about her injuries. He felt pity and self-reproach in his heart. His daughter was still so young, but she was scared to this extent. Be good. It's okay. Daddy is here. It's okay. He could only gently comfort her. He gently patted her head. When he felt that her trembling gradually subsided, he opened his mouth. It's okay. Daddy will accompany you. Come, let Daddy take a look at your wounds. Your wounds are bleeding. I need to apply medicine. Who was shrinking in Xianyuan Mose's embrace, blinked her eyes. Suddenly she cried loudly, Wah! Oof! Daddy, Yu is very scared. Yu is very scared. Daddy is not here to save you. Mother is also not here, brother is also not here. Uncle Hua is also not here, Uncle Huilang is also not here, Aunt Qin is also not here. Yu is alone. She convulsed and cried loudly as if she wanted to vent the fear in her heart. Her tears were like a flood that broke through the dam, unstoppable. As Xianyuan Mose listened, his heart tightened. How scared was his daughter at that moment? How helpless was that? He hugged her tightly and could only say, It's Daddy's fault. Daddy didn't protect you well. It's Daddy's fault. When the people outside heard the conversation inside, they were all silent and their faces were tense. What do you think is going on? Huilang asked. In spirit. Wei Feng's face sank as killing intent surged within his eyes. How can a ghost have such an ability? If it was a ghost, it wouldn't be able to enter our house, let alone by Yuer's side. Oh, it should be a dream. Gu Mo said in a deep voice. His originally cold face became even colder. Right now, I just want to know if the Yama Lord has destroyed the thing that's pestering you. If she sleeps again, will she? As Leng Hua spoke, his voice paused and he sighed silently. Fan Lin frowned and said, It seems to have started from that fall a few days ago. That fall wasn't normal, but it didn't show, but unexpectedly. Everyone was silent, not knowing what to say. They also didn't want anything to happen to the two little masters, but when they saw you, suddenly like this, they all thought of that old Taoist's words. Chapter 43-41. Inside the room, Qinshin had already treated all the wounds on Yuer's body. Fortunately, all of them were only superficial wounds, and after a trace of blood seeped out, there was no more bleeding. Merely, even if this was the case, but seeing those small wounds caused by wind blades on the little person's white and tender body, their hearts still clenched. After saluting, the two quietly retreated, leaving only the father and daughter in the room. After they came out, Muchen went inside again because he was worried about his sister. "How is it? Did you apply medicine to the wounds?" Leng Hua asked. "I did. Fortunately, it's only superficial wounds, it's not a big deal," Qin Exen said and sighed softly. "She suffered so much at such a young age, my heart clenched just looking at her." "Where's Fan Lin?" Qin Exen looked around and didn't see Fan Lin, so she asked. "He went to the kitchen to boil a calming soup. He said that Yuer was frightened and that she would feel better after drinking a bowl of it," Leng Hua said. Hearing this, Qin Exen nodded, and she was frightened a lot. She used to be so smart, but now her voice is trembling a little. She also kept hugging the Yama Lord tightly and refused to let go. He's really frightened. Drinking a bowl of calming soup will make her feel better. In the room, Yuer was nestled in Xinyuan Mo's arms, her small hands tightly clutching his robes. She whispered, "That person was very ugly. He kept chasing me and even stuck out his long tongue to lick me. He said that Yuer has an innate spiritual body and that she smells good and is delicious." Yuer kept running and running. A cold wind blew on Yuer and Yuer got injured. Yuer kept calling for Daddy, but Daddy didn't appear. As she spoke, she raised her head, her eyes still filled with fear as she asked, "Father, will that person come again? Will he still want to eat Yuer? Why would he want to eat Yuer? Yuer is not delicious." Xinyuan Mo's eyes were full of self-blame and pity. He gently rubbed her head and said, "Be good. Don't be afraid. With Daddy here, it won't dare to come again." Muchen watched and listened from the side. He understood some of it and some of it he didn't, so he asked, "Daddy, what is that?" Xinyuan Mo looked at him and then at his daughter in his arms and said, It's a ghost. It's not a human but an evil creature. Don't be afraid of it because it can't get close to you. I'll teach you a set of skills to protect yourself. You have to learn it diligently." Then he looked at Muchen. "You should also listen carefully and learn." Muchen hummed in response and sat by the side. He listened attentively and memorized every word his father said and taught him. At this moment, Fengjiu, who was on her way back, did not know that something had happened at home. They traveled on their swords from Azure Demon City. Even if there were any delays on the way back, about 10 days of travel would be enough. Therefore their speed was not considered fast, but it was not slow either. Until one day Leng Shuang, who was resting by the roadside, heard Leng Hua's voice and quickly came to Fengjiu's side. "Master, Hua sent news that something has happened at home." Hearing this, Fengjiu frowned and asked, "What happened?" Qi Kong, Du Fan, and the others also gathered around and looked at Leng Shuang, waiting for her to continue. Chapter 43-42. Wounds caused by rubbing sand and stones usually stop bleeding after a small drop of blood. Even if you don't apply medicine, it will heal by itself in a day or two. But Mrs. Wound wasn't deep, but she lost a lot of blood. Since that day, Qin Exen helped to apply medicine and bandage her wound. She recovered after a few days. But last night something happened again. Fengjiu's heart jumped and she said, "Continue." While Miss was sleeping, a wound suddenly appeared on her body. It was as if she was having a nightmare. Her small face was deathly pale and she was sweating all over. But she didn't wake up. Finally, the Yama Lord used his yang qi and ancient pressure to protect her body. Only after she spat out a mouthful of blood did she wake up. They were discussing it. It is said that the Yama Lord said that it should be a ghost entering her dream. Hearing this, Fengjiu's hands tightly clenched into fists. She asked, "Did Leng Hua say how you is now?" "Right now, the King of Hell is accompanying her day and night. However, Miss has been frightened. Although she drank the calming soup, her condition hasn't been very good for the past 2 days. Therefore he wants to see if we can hurry back." Hearing this, Fengjiu stood up and said, "I will go back first. You all can come back later." After saying this, she didn't wait for them to say anything. She raised her qi and in a breath's time her figure had already disappeared into the clouds. A few days later, the travel-worn Fengjiu arrived at the gate of the residence alone. Looking at the familiar gate, she didn't knock on the door. Instead, she directly raised her chi and quietly jumped in. Master's back. The two lions lying on the ground at the gate were pleasantly surprised to see Fengjiu dressed in red. They propped themselves up and called out to her. But they only saw her raise her chi and jump into the residence. Master? The fire phoenix had originally landed on a big tree in the residence. When it saw that familiar figure, it promptly flapped its wings and flew forward. Leng Hua, Fan Lin and others were walking and chatting about Yu'er's condition. Then they saw a red figure flitting over their heads and heading towards the main courtyard. It's Master? Master's back? They were slightly startled. Then they were pleasantly surprised and quickly followed. In the main courtyard, Shenyuan Mose was feeding Yu'er porridge. Seeing that she only ate 2 or 3 mouthfuls, he said in a low voice, Must eat more, otherwise your body will not get well. Let brother eat, yours full. It had only been a few days, but she had lost a lot of weight and looked listless. Mu Chen, who was sitting beside her, said, Mothers, eat this bowl of porridge. Mother by Moses, eat by the side of mothers, S's, fathers of you, estes uses you, S's you, teat, S's, zufs, you, teates, S's and hers of course. T is her, smother, as hers. Hers. Smother is back. She shouted in surprise and hurriedly got down from her father's arms. She ran towards the red figure with her short legs. Mother, you're Mrs. Mother. Mother is finally back. Chapter 43. Seeing that little person dashing towards them with her little legs and her little face full of excitement and joy, Fengjiu's heart softened. She hastily stepped forward and caught her daughter who was dashing towards them. Her little body crashed into her bosom, and she felt that she was tightly hugging her without letting go. A low sobbing sound came from her bosom, and she could faintly feel that her lapel was wet. Hearing that soft sobbing sound, her heart tightened. She gently patted her daughter's back with one hand and gently caressed her head. She comforted her in a soft voice. It's okay. Mother is here, mother is back. Mother. Yu'er raised her head from her bosom. Crying like a little kitten, her soft voice carried a bit of sobbing. She said, You're Mrs. Mother. Mother will always accompany you, okay? Okay, mother will always accompany you, From now on, mother will always accompany you, She held her daughter's little face and gently kissed her forehead. Don't cry. Are you crying like a little kitten? While speaking, she used a handkerchief to wipe the tears on her daughter's face. Her finger lightly scratched her daughter's nose and she chuckled, Look what mother brought back for you. With a wave of her hand, a snow-white 9-tailed fox came out from her space and obediently laid on the ground. It only raised its head to look at Yu'er and again looked at Fengjiu. Little white fox. Mother, it's little white fox. When the little person saw the snow-white 9-tailed fox, she was surprised and happy. She hurriedly squatted down and wanted to pick it up. But she was only 2 years old, so she estimated that she was not as heavy as the 9-tailed fox. She was basically unable to pick up the 9-tailed fox. Shrink a bit. Fengjiu glanced at the 9-tailed fox and commanded with her divine sense. Being swept by her gaze, the 9-tailed fox immediately flashed and its body shrunk again. 8 of its 9 tails were also hidden, leaving only one outside. It was so small that it looked like a little white cat. Yu'er easily picked it up and happily giggled. While looking at Fengjiu, she said, Thank you, mother. Little white fox is really cute. It can also become small. Yu'er likes it very much. It's good that you like it. Let it play with you first. Later, mother will help you contract it. In the future, it will be your playmate. If you are in danger, just call it and it will come out to help you. Fengjiu's gentle gaze fell on her body, and the expression in his eyes naturally overflowed with a kind of light called motherly love. Mother. Mu Chen also ran over, but he did not throw himself into Fengjiu's arms. Instead, he looked at her with a hint of shyness, nervousness, and excitement. Mother, I'm Mu Chen. He said his name with a serious face. Yes, I know. You're Mu Chen, my son. Fengjiu chuckled. Looking at the little fellow, he couldn't help but reach out and pull him into his arms, kissing him again and again. Come, let mother kiss little Chen. Fengjiu said with a smile, hugging him and kissing his pink cheeks. When she saw the little fellow in her arms blinking his beautiful eyes shyly at her, she couldn't help but chuckle. Chin, are you shy? Fengjiu teased him, saying, when you were young, mother often hugged and kissed you like this, don't you remember? Chapter 43-44. Mother kissed him. She kissed him so many times. The little guy's long eyelashes fluttered like two beautiful butterflies, and his pair of beautiful black eyes reflected his mother's face. Hearing his mother's words, he stretched out his small hands and hugged her neck, and his immature voice contained a strong affection for a child. Mother, Chin, or also Mrs. Mother. If mother goes out in the future, can you take Chin with you? Chin doesn't want to be separated from mother. Hearing this, Fengjiu's heart softened. She gently stroked his head and softly answered, okay, from now on, wherever mother goes, take Chin with you. Me too, me too. Hugged the little white fox and squeezed forward, and nestled into Fengjiu's bosom. Yes, your mother, there's also father. Said with a beaming smile. Looking at her handsome father who was standing not far away with his hands behind his back, and again looking at her mother who was as beautiful as a flower beside her, her small face was full of happy smile. That's great, mother came back. From now on their family won't be separated. Okay, there's also your father. From now on our family will be together and won't be separated. She softly smiled and looked at Xianyuan Mose in front of her. Two people's four eyes met, tenderness and longing intertwined in their eyes, and finally turned into unspoken deep affection. Xianyuan Mose came over, and when he came to her side, Fengjiu also stood up and was embraced by him. It's good that you're back. His deep and low voice, with his unique charming magnetism, entered her ears, making her ears go limp and numb and making her heart ripple. Along with the slight raise of the corner of her mouth, a smile bloomed on her lips. I'm back, she softly said and tightly hugged his waist, burying her face in his chest, and smelling the familiar smell of his body, she only felt exceptionally at ease. The two little fellows stood beside them and looked up at the scene of their father and mother hugging each other. They couldn't help but smile happily. Outside the courtyard, when Leng Hua and the others saw this scene, their hearts overflowed with a feeling called gratitude. Putting aside their noble status, they were actually just an ordinary family. A pair of adorable children, a loving couple reuniting after a long time. This scene moved the hearts of those who had watched them walk step by step. They only felt an indescribable feeling spreading in their hearts. There was gratification, relief, and blessings. They quietly retreated, leaving the space for the family to reunite. In the evening, Leng Shuang, Du Fan, and the others returned to the residence. Sister Master came back before you. Leng Hua looked at Leng Shuang and saw the exhaustion on her face. He asked, isn't there a teleportation formation? Why didn't you use the teleportation array to come back? Du Fan and the others sat down in the front courtyard, sipping tea and resting. Leng Shuang said, we followed Qi Kong to deal with some matters on the way back, and on the way back, we didn't receive any news from you, so we didn't know that something had happened to Little Mississippi. She then asked, how is it now? Chapter 43-45. Hearing this, Leng Shuang frowned and asked, didn't you think of a way to make her eat something? She's still so young, we can't go on like this. Yes, Qin Xian and Qing Qing have been trying different ways to make her favorite food these days, but they couldn't eat it and would stop eating after 1 or 2 bites. But today Master came back and I saw you eat a bowl of porridge. Her appetite has improved a lot. She didn't have much energy these days, but seeing Master come back, she's been very energetic all day. Leng Hua said warmly. It's good. Leng Shuang nodded and finally felt relieved. By the way, how was your trip? Did you take care of everything? Leng Hua looked at Qi Kong and asked. Don't worry. It's all taken care of. When we arrived at Azure Demon City, we didn't expect to meet Master and the others. With Master and the others around, it's twice the result with half the effort. Luo Yu grinned and said, later on the way back, we destroyed 2 places where evil cultivators appeared on the way. That's why it took some time. Do you want to rest first? Or do you want to see Master and Yama Lord? Leng Hua asked. Let's go see them first. I haven't seen the 2 little masters for so long, I have to go see them first. Du Fan said and stood up with a smile. Well, let's go together. They're in the main courtyard. Leng Hua said and waited for them to rest for a while. After drinking a cup of tea, they walked to the backyard together. In the backyard, Fengjiu looked at the two children in front of him and said, "The two contracted beasts Mother found for you are both ancient mythical beasts. As long as you contract them, it will only be good for you. But now you're still young. Even if you have innate spiritual bodies and a divine fetus, you're still not strong. So after contracting them, the strength of these two originally very strong ancient mythical beasts will be suppressed." The two children listened and didn't understand. "Mother, is Chinra's contracted beast really a qilin?" Mu Chen asked curiously. Fengjiu smiled and answered, "Yes, it's a fire qilin." She waved her hand and released the fire qilin from her space. The fire qilin flew out. Because it didn't dare to cause too much of a commotion, it only circled around the courtyard. When it saw the fire phoenix resting on Fengjiu's shoulder, it glanced and then looked away. Then it turned to look at Shenyuan Mo's and finally the human child who would contract with it. So it's this little brat? So weak. With that thought in mind, it circled around to Mu Chen's side, retracted the flames on its body and laid down at his feet. How to be a qilin? When he saw the fire qilin lying obediently at his feet, he couldn't help but happily reach out and carefully touch the scales on its body, as well as the qilin horn on its head. His beautiful eyes were filled with curiosity and surprise. "Do you like it?" Fengjiu asked with a smile. She rested her chin on one hand and watched him touch the qilin horn. Yes, I like it. Mother, it looks very powerful." The little guy couldn't hide the excitement in his eyes. Qilin heard this and proudly raised its head. As if to confirm Mu Chen's words, it jumped up and flew into the air. It opened its mouth and spat a flame into the sky. Wow, it can spit fire. Chapter 43-46. Seeing the excited and shocked appearance of the two little guys, Fire Qilin's performance became more energetic. In the end, Fengjiu was worried that its continuous spitting of fire would attract the suspicion of those people in the city, so he laughed and shouted, "All right, come down. Don't show off." Fire Phoenix, who was standing on Fengjiu's shoulder, disdainfully glanced at Fire Qilin. It disapproved of its fire-spitting trick. It was also of the fire attribute, and the fire it spouted wasn't ordinary fire. It wouldn't show off its fire-spitting trick like this. After Fire Qilin heard Fengjiu's words, it came down and circled around before returning to Mu Chen's side to lie down. Looking at this scene, little Yuko couldn't help but lower her head to look at the little white fox in her arms and asked, "Mother, what can this little white fox do? Can it also spit fire?" "It can't spit fire, but it's also very powerful." Fengjiu smiled and then said, "Come, put them here. I'll help them break the contract and then help you two contract." When Leng Hua and Du Fan arrived, they saw Fengjiu in the courtyard helping the two little masters contract two ancient mythological beasts. Therefore they didn't disturb them and waited outside quietly watching. Only when they saw that the contract was completed and the two contracted beasts had entered the space of the two little masters, did they walk in. "Master Yamalord." Du Fan and the others walked in and saluted them. "You've arrived?" Fengjiu glanced at them and smiled. "It seems that you're not much slower than me." "We've also just arrived." Du Fan smiled and said, "Thinking that we haven't seen the two little masters for almost a year, we came to let the little masters recognize us." While speaking, he looked at Mu Chen and Yu. "Chen, do you still recognize them?" Fengjiu smiled and asked, looking at the two little guys sizing them up. The two shook their heads. They didn't recognize them. "Little master, I'm Du Fan. They are still young, so you don't have to call them little masters." As Fengjiu spoke, he looked at the two little guys and then at Du Fan and the others. "You've seen them being born, so just call them by their names." Fengjiu paused and said to the two children, "You can call him Uncle Du or Uncle Fan. They've been with Mother for a long time, so they're like family. You should call them Uncle, okay?" Yes. The two children nodded, then looked at Du Fan and called out, "Uncle Fan." Seeing this, Du Fan hurriedly said, "Then we'll call them by their nickname at home and call them young master and young mistress in front of others. We can't do without rules." "Up to you," Fengjiu said indifferently and didn't argue about how to address them. He just smiled and said, "You can introduce yourselves. After all, you followed me out when they didn't know how to recognize people. It's normal that they don't recognize you now." Thus, the few people who went out introduced themselves. The two children were also well behaved and obediently called them one by one. Chapter 43-47. In the courtyard, after the two children recognized them, Fengjiu let Du Fan and others go to rest first. After they left, only their family was left in the courtyard. Fengjiu hugged the two children and asked with a smile, "You two don't recognize them, so how did you recognize Mother?" "There is a portrait of Mother in the study room," the two children said in unison. Fengjiu was surprised and looked towards Xianyuan Mo's. "You left for nearly a year, and the two children also frequently said that they miss Mother, so I drew your portrait and hung it in the study room." A deep and low voice came out from Xianyuan Mo's mouth. His deep eyes looked at Fengjiu with deep affection and smiling expression. "No wonder you threw herself at me as soon as she saw me." Fengjiu lightly smiled and lightly scratching the tip of Yu's nose, she said, "I was thinking that after leaving for so long, you two little fellows don't know whether you will recognize me or not." No, you recognizes Mother." Yu hastily said. "Chen also won't forget Mother," the little fellow also said with serious face. Looking at the two cute and considerate children, Fengjiu's heart softened. She touched their tender and smooth cheeks and said with a smile, "Chen and you are really obedient, Mother really loves you too." Finished speaking, she couldn't help but lean over and kissed their cheeks. The eyes of the two little fellows sparkled as they looked at her. Their limpid and beautiful eyes overflowed with joy and happiness. They could feel that kind of feeling their mother loved them so much that she was unwilling to part with them. Seeing their mother like them so much, the heart of the two little fellows was also endlessly happy. "You kisses Mother." The little one imitated her and raised her head slightly. She pouted her pink lips and kissed Fengjiu's face. With a muffled sound, the little one smiled so happily that her eyes narrowed. She hugged her mother tightly with her small hands and giggled. Muchen, on the other hand, was a little shy. He blinked his beautiful eyes and looked like he wanted to kiss her, but he was also a little shy. His little hands were clasped behind his back as if he had not made up his mind. Seeing this, Fengjiu was amused and asked, "Chen, do you want to kiss me?" As she said this, she bent down slightly and tilted her cheek slightly to him. Seeing this, Muchen looked at her with sparkling eyes. He sneaked a peek at his father beside him. Seeing that he did not object, he leaned forward and carefully kissed his mother's cheek. He quickly pulled back and shyly lowered his little head. "Good girl." Fengjiu chuckled and rubbed the two children's heads. Then he said to them, "Go out and play. Mother has something to discuss with your father." She carried the two children down and placed them on the ground. She smiled and said, "Go and see what delicious food the kitchen has prepared tonight." The two little fellows responded. After informing their father, they walked out hand in hand. After the two children left, Fire Phoenix, who had been parked at the side, also followed after them. Only Xianyuan Mo's and Fengjiu were left in the courtyard. Chapter 43-48. Hearing her words, Xianyuan Mo said, "I've been using ancient power to protect her these past few days. That's why she's been able to sleep peacefully. As you said, this ghost enters her dreams and isn't easy to deal with." He paused and said, "Actually, I wanted to release Yu's seal. Even if the ghost reappears when she falls asleep, I would let her burn it with the Red Lotus Hellfire. However, I was worried that she would not be able to control the Red Lotus Hellfire, so using the Red Lotus Hellfire to deal with it is a last resort. Yu is still young, so I don't recommend it," Fengjiu said slowly. After thinking for a while, he said, has contracted the nine-tailed spiritual fox. Normally, if Yu is in danger, it can come out to help. However, I don't know if the nine-tailed spiritual fox can appear in this dream." Xianyuan Mo's gently tapped the stone table with one hand, as a deep voice slowly came out of his mouth. "Actually, there's another way, and that's to find the true body of that ghost and destroy it. Naturally, that way it won't be able to cause any trouble. These days, I have tried to find the ghost's real body. However, I have found nothing." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, "Then let me try." Xianyuan Mo's looked at her and asked, "You?" "Yes, I will find the ghost's real body." She smiled, but there was no smile in her eyes. Instead, there was coldness in her eyes. She said lightly, "After finding the ghost's real body, I will destroy its soul so that it will never be reincarnated. In the main courtyard, the couple who had not seen each other for a long time finished discussing the two children's matters and talked about the recent events. Others knew that the two of them were in the courtyard, so they did not disturb them. Instead, they prepared dinner. After dinner was ready, the two children called them to the front hall to eat. The group, who had not met for a long time, sat around the table and chatted until late at night. Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu each carried a sleeping child to the main courtyard. The two children were nestled in their arms, but in the end they fell asleep in their arms. As they were worried that the night wind would cause them to catch a cold, the two wrapped the children in their coats and brought them back to the main courtyard. Qingqing, prepare some hot water. I want to wipe the two children's bodies. Fengjiu ordered outside. Yes. Qingqing, who was waiting outside, responded. She brought in some hot water and placed it on the small table beside the bed. Seeing the two children sleeping on the big bed, she said, Master, do you want me to do it? No, I'll do it, Fengjiu said. She took the handkerchief and soaked it in it before wiping their faces. Then she untied their clothes and wiped their bodies. Only then did she ask Qingqing to bring the water out. You have a child's go take a bath. Take a bath and rest early. I'll take care of the two children. Xianyuan Mose walked over and told her to take a shower first. Then I'll go take a bath first. I'll come over later, Fengjiu said, letting her accompany the two children. Then he went out. Because he was worried that Yue would not sleep well, Xianyuan Mose used his pressure to protect her. Only when the night gradually deepened did he see Fengjiu come back. Fengjiu saw that Yue was sleeping soundly under the protection of Mose's pressure, so he also laid down beside the two children. After rushing back, he was indeed somewhat tired. After lying on the bed and talking with Xianyuan Mose, he also fell asleep. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.